If you want to know the secrets of existence and the true meaning of life, I can't help you. But if you want some book recommendations, why not try reading the ones I wrote? If you're a fan of giant monster mayhem and anime weirdness, why not try Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1? If horror is more your style, you can't go wrong with The Occult Mafia. Those who enjoy their fantasy with a dark twist may be interested in Emerald of Maddox City. And if you're interested in shared universes, why not read all three? Hop on down to the description for links to all three books on Amazon. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video. This is just your reminder of why I'm not in the studio for this video. Say hi to everyone, Dynamite. She'll just be relaxing beside me while I do this particular little rambling video. Oh, big yawn. Yeah, you're just gonna relax, aren't you? With that being said, hello ladies and gentlemen, I am the Omni viewer, and I've been thinking ever since I saw Space Jam: A New Legacy. We all know by now that it's bad. Like, really bad. Not necessarily offensively bad, but just dull. Not even close to interesting. But I keep thinking there's a way it could have worked. And there's a way it could have worked while keeping all of the elements that are in the movie. And I've been brainstorming it, and I think I have a way. Just a little bit of a solution as to what could have been. Something a little more in line with the Lego movie, but with a slightly different focus. Here's what I mean. Like I said, we can keep most of the elements the film already has. We can keep LeBron and Dom and their conflict about what the two of them want. We can keep the serververse. We can keep Algae Rhythm as the main villain. We can keep the different worlds that all these different Warner Brothers properties exist on. And we can keep the idea of Bugs Bunny being the only one left on Looney Tunes world because the rest of the cast went off to explore the rest of the serververse. We can have all those elements, but how can we make them good? Well, here's what I came up with. So, same basic setup to start. We have LeBron and Dom go to the Warner Brothers company because Algae Rhythm wants LeBron to be in on this whole launch and get the recognition he deserves. When it doesn't happen, he notices Dom instead, sucks them both into the serververse. Now, here's where the difference comes. There's no setup for a basketball game at first. Not a bit. The LG basically just takes Dom and drops LeBron off somewhere else, and he runs. And Dom... She's playing with me while I'm trying to film. This is what happens when you're a pet owner. So anyway, Algae Rhythm takes Dom away. LeBron wanted to completely control Dom's life. Rhythm promises total freedom. Total freedom to do whatever the heck Dom wants. But in reality, he's just going to be subtly manipulating Dom the whole time into doing what he wants, because he's an algorithm. That's what he does. And LeBron just gets sort of dumped on Looney Tunes world. And again, Bugs is the only one there. Now here's where we can explain something that honestly wasn't explained all that well in the original movie. Why did Algae Rhythm send the Looney Tunes scattered across the serververse? That doesn't really make much sense. All we know is that he showed up, he told them, hey, why don't you guys all go and explore? And Bugs is the only one that didn't listen. Why did Rhythm do that? Why did Bugs stay? We honestly have no idea. I don't think the movie ever said it. If it did say it, then it wasn't really that important because it wasn't a detail that stuck. So, here's where we get the explanation in this new version. The reason Rhythm decided to scatter the Looney Tunes is because he cannot control them. The Looney Tunes are anarchic. That's part of their whole shtick. They are chaotic beings. They just operate by their own rules, do whatever they want. You cannot control them. Not even Algae Rhythm can control them, and he wants total control. Even though he promises Dom freedom, as stated, he wants total control. So, since he cannot control the Looney Tunes, and he cannot mold them to fit what he thinks will work, which we could show him trying and maybe have that be sort of a nice little jab at things like Lunatics Unleashed or Baby Looney Tunes or things like that, he instead decides if he can't control them, he'll separate them. If they are separated and they are trying to fit into other worlds, they can't defy him. So that's what he does. He just sort of subtly persuades them into thinking, you know, you're not reaching your full potential here. Villains, wouldn't you like to be in a setting where you might actually win? Where you might actually be the heroes? And heroes, isn't it boring beating the villains all the time? Don't you want more variety in your life? And so, everyone listens. Everyone except Bugs, who can see through the facade. But he gets left behind, unfortunately. So, now that LeBron is here, there's an opportunity. And this can actually correct another issue with the original film. In Space Jam: A New Legacy, as it currently exists, Bugs is basically using LeBron as an excuse to get the gang back together. LeBron has his own plan about what he wants for the dream team of basketball, but Bugs is just seeing an opportunity to get all of his friends back. And nothing ever really comes of this. LeBron never really seems all that upset that Bugs was using him, if he ever figures out that was the plan, and Bugs never apologizes, not that he would necessarily, but it just felt like an unnecessary detail. So, let's cut that. This new version, Bugs is upfront with LeBron. He just says, alright Doc, you lost your son, I lost all my pals, maybe we can help each other. We don't know where your son is, but we can find him, and maybe we can find some of my pals along the way. So that's what they do. They get off of Looney Tunes World, and they start searching the serververse. They go to these different worlds, trying to see if there's any clue as to where Algae Rhythm has taken Dom. Or maybe there are occasions where they know for a fact that they are there, or at least were there, but they just miss them. That gives us a better excuse to go searching through the serververse. And that becomes the main goal of the movie. We are traveling to all these different worlds, trying to find Dom. Meanwhile, we're cutting to Dom being manipulated by Algae Rhythm, and maybe slowly starting to see through the facade on his own as well. But the main focus of it is with LeBron and Bugs as they travel around, picking up the different Looney Tunes. And this can correct another issue that exists in A New Legacy. Right now, A New Legacy has that montage section where they're getting the band back together, and it goes from being a montage of assembling the team to just a montage of putting the Looney Tunes in different properties that Time Warner and AT&T have access to. That becomes the entirety of it. Eventually it just sort of stops being about the story and just becomes a bunch of references. And some of those references make less sense than others. Like, one thing that makes sense is putting Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner in Mad Max Fury Road. Because, you know, Mad Max Fury Road is a chase through the desert. That's just like the Wile E. and Roadrunner shorts. Granted, Space Jam: A New Legacy is not the first area where that comparison has been made, but whatever, you can still see the logic there. Putting Yosemite Sam in Casablanca exists purely for the sake of a joke that's only kind of funny the first time because it's unexpected, and once you do expect it, you realize it's really not that funny at all. And it's going to be even less funny to someone who isn't familiar with Casablanca. And then you get stuff like Foghorn Leghorn in Game of Thrones. If there was any logic behind that choice, I don't know what it was because it did not come through. Other than having him say the most famous Game of Thrones tagline, if you will, in his own signature way, it didn't really make sense. The only thing I can really think of is that Game of Thrones deals a lot with the political side of the fantasy genre, which isn't usually explored, and Foghorn Leghorn's verbal mannerisms were based on a fictional senator from a popular series back in the 30s and 40s. but even that connection is really tenuous. And actually, you know what? By the filmmaker's own logic, Pepe Le Pew probably should have been in the Game of Thrones world. I mean, the filmmakers believe that Pepe Le Pew perpetuates rape culture, and Game of Thrones is a series that's full of rape, so why wouldn't they just commit to it? Take Pepe Le Pew and put him in place of Jason Momoa during that one scene, or whatever. I mean, that's the one option. The other option is to maybe, I don't know, commit to the idea that you don't want to corrupt the children and not make references to a mature audience's series in a family-friendly film. But what am I saying? That's crazy talk. I'm not the professional filmmaker, so clearly I need to defer to the people who think that Game of Thrones and A Clockwork Orange are more appropriate for children than Pepe Le Pew. Anyway, that tangent aside, we now have a better reason for the characters to be jumping from world to world, because now we're actually on a search, we have a goal, we have some little goals that can be picked up along the way, and, depending on the world, we can also have some of the characters still rendered in 3D like we see during the main game. But now we also have an opportunity to explore the deeper theme about freedom versus control, and being true to yourself versus being what people want you to be. Because, like I said, in this new version, Rhythm decided that he had to scatter the Looney Tunes because he couldn't directly control them. Instead, he manipulated them into thinking they weren't reaching their full potential. So, now, we see how the Looney Tunes have integrated themselves into these different worlds. And maybe we can see that they're actually not doing very well. They're trying, perhaps, but they've integrated themselves into different settings that go completely against their nature, which wasn't really conveyed in the film as it currently is. In the current film, sure, we see Daffy Duck screwing up trying to be Superman, but then we see Granny and Speedy Gonzales seem right at home in the Matrix. It doesn't really seem like there's any rhyme or reason to it. So instead, let's actually see the characters trying and failing to be what somebody else wanted them to be. And Bugs comes along and reminds them of who they really are. Where better to start than with Elmer? Find Elmer in some sort of world where he's just trying to be a regular dude and not doing very well. Bugs comes along and Elmer instantly gets that urge to kill the Wabbit and fights it until he can't anymore, causing anarchy in whatever world he's in, and that starts the ball rolling. Of course, chaos will constantly happen, and the characters will most likely get kicked off of whatever world they were currently on because of that, but every character leaves happy because they are who they always were. They are who they were always meant to be, who they truly are inside. This would also do wonders for Lola. Again, one of my big critiques with the current version of A New Legacy is that Lola regressed. They basically acted like all the development she went through between 1996 and 2021 never happened. And I've seen people say that the reason for this is probably because more people are going to be familiar with Space Jam and how she is there than they would be with how she is in, say, the Looney Tunes show or New Looney Tunes. Maybe that's true, but I still don't think that's an excuse. You still have that material. You still have things you can draw from to add to Lola's character and make her feel more like a proper Looney Tune than she originally was. But the filmmakers didn't do that. It's like what happened when Disney bought Star Wars and declared all of the expanded universe to not be canon. On the one hand, I get not wanting to be slave to all of that continuity and having to somehow weave a way around it and through it and count on the audience to somehow be familiar with it. But at the same time, you could have made new material that drew elements from those things. You could have made movies in which you established Thrawn as a new villain and Mara Jade as a new hero. You didn't have to just completely throw them in the waste bin. And Space Jam: A New Legacy did the exact same thing with Lola's character. So let's try this on for size. We can keep her on Wonder Woman's world, but here's how this scenario could play out a little differently. So again, this is one of those times where we have the same setup. They find Lola on Wonder Woman's world, getting ready for the Amazon trials. Bugs goes up and he tells Lola to come with them because they are all getting back together and they're trying to help LeBron find his son. And Lola's like, no, stay away from me. I'm trying to become an Amazon here. This is like the 50th time I've run this course and I failed every single time. But being an Amazon means a lot to me and I cannot mess up again. When asked why she's failed 50 times, Lola says she doesn't know, but she's completely embraced the Amazon way of living, so by all logic she should be able to pass, yet she keeps failing. Bugs, of course, says, "You ever tried running the course your way rather than the Amazon's way?" To which Lola just says, "That's ridiculous, now get out of my way, I have to run this course." And she's running against other Amazons in this scenario as well, not doing a solo run. So the tournament begins, and Lola immediately falls behind again. She's getting outclassed by the other Amazons instantly. So she's like, at first very distraught, like, not again. And then Bugs's advice goes through her mind and goes, well, couldn't hurt. So then she starts running the course like a Looney Tune. And, of course, completely wrecks it in the process. She pulls ahead, but nothing is left standing in her wake. And she finally completes it, she wins, but then all the Amazons turn their spears and arrows on her because of all the damage she caused. And then, of course, Wonder Woman herself steps in and says, "Peace, sisters, lay down your arms. While it is true that the rabbit has caused great chaos today, she completed the course for the first time, and she did so by being true to herself. We Amazons value truth above all, and so I am honored to say that Lola Bunny has completed the course and now can be accepted as a full Amazon. That being said, Lola, you have 5 minutes to get the heck off of our island and never come back." To which Lola just says, "Okay, whatever, still won," and she leaves with the rest of the Looney Tunes. That makes it more interesting, wouldn't you agree? And you know, perhaps Wonder Woman isn't the only character they encounter on the journey who kind of takes a shine to the Looney Tunes that have been occupying their world. But we'll see a payoff to that come later. So we finally get to the end. Dom, by this point, is starting to see what Algae Rhythm's real goal is. And he's no longer on board with it, but now he's trapped. LeBron and the Looney Tunes finally catch up to them in whatever setting. And Dom sees exactly what his father was trying to do for him this whole time. And of course he's with the Looney Tunes, which is cool. So now he's ready to go back. And LeBron is of course ready to accept Dom and let him do him. Because he's seen throughout this whole journey how the Looney Tunes were only able to prosper by being true to themselves. So he has learned by watching them and understanding what they are teaching him, essentially. Probably not intentionally, because, I mean, they're not educational characters, but all the same, he still takes away that lesson. So, Rhythm is no longer playing games. He sees that the Looney Tunes are back together, this is the worst possible thing that could have happened, so he traps them all. He just manipulates the code in order to encage, I guess, LeBron and the Looney Tunes. But while he's busy doing that and monologuing about how he's won and LeBron will never see his son again and this time he's going to delete the tunes forever, Dom sneaks off and finds a way to access the code of the serververse. He hacks into it, and it's ridiculously complex, so he can't solve the whole problem by himself. But there are some things he can do. First, he deletes the cages, freeing the Looney Tunes and LeBron. The Looney Tunes immediately start causing chaos, annoying the heck out of Algae, who starts multiplying himself in order to try dealing with them. LeBron is at first unable to do anything until Dom manipulates the code again to create a basketball court. And then we have a way to tie it into the first movie. But now it actually serves more of a purpose because LeBron is now in his element. He's no fighter, he's no action star, but he knows basketball. And Dom keeps shouting hints about different ways he can manipulate and use the new area to his advantage in order to deal some blows against Algae Rhythm. And it works for a little bit until Rhythm decides that he's going to call down the entire serververse on the Looney Tunes. While he's trying to fix his own code and out-hack Dom in order to gain back full control, Rhythm notices what's been going on all these different worlds in the serververse. And now he thinks he has the advantage. If he calls everyone from all those different worlds to his aid, there's no way they're gonna side with the Looney Tunes, right? Because the Looney Tunes wound up wreaking havoc everywhere they went. So he does it. All the different properties, all the different titles, all the different characters show up. And Rhythm orders them to attack, but they don't. Instead, let's say Rick from Casablanca steps forward and says, "Now why should we do that, sweetheart?" Then we get a nice little speech about how all these different properties, old and new, live action or animated, they were all created by true artists. People who were true to themselves and true to their vision. And so they created things that have lasted through the ages, things that have appealed to people on a level that Algae Rhythm can never understand, because he's just a soulless set of numbers that only thinks it knows what's popular and only thinks it knows what makes for good entertainment. It can't possibly understand the nuance, the complexity. It can't understand art. And that's what occupies the serververse. The serververse is a place where art flourishes. But it has nothing to do with computers. It has nothing to do with reading what's popular and what isn't, or trying to pander to certain audiences or certain governments or whatever. It's just about making the truest vision of what you believe will entertain. So the serververse isn't with Algae Rhythm, they're with the Looney Tunes. And then we can get a finale in which both LeBron and Bugs tag team Rhythm, Bugs saying he remembers a few skills he picked up from MJ back in the 90s, and they use their basketball abilities to basically get rid of Algae Rhythm. Maybe he's not completely gone, but he's so reduced in power that he can't possibly control things anymore. And now the serververse is just open to exploration to anyone who's interested. If Space Jam: A New Legacy had to exist at all, this, I feel, is how it could have worked. This is how you could have actually made use of the premise and used it to convey a message that's layered. It's about father-son relationships, it's about studio-artist relationships, it's about audience entertainment relationships, but it always comes down to the idea that you need to be true to yourself. You need to embrace what makes you distinct, and only by doing that can everyone truly be free to do great things. And that, I feel, could have been a much better way to convey that idea. Right now, Space Jam: A New Legacy thinks it's saying that, but what it's really saying is subscribe to HBO Max. But I think that's a very soulless message. Like I said, this is kind of inspired by the Lego Movie, ironically also a Warner Brothers property. The Lego Movie could have just been a commercial. It's literally about toys. But the message of a Lego Movie wasn't, look at all the cool sets you can buy, but rather, look at all the amazing things Lego can allow you to do if you just let your imagination run wild. That's why a Lego Movie is still so fondly remembered to this day. Even with all the lackluster sequels and spin-offs that happened, that original Lego Movie still stands out because it knew how to approach the subject matter. It wasn't a commercial, but it still makes you want to break out your old Lego sets and see what you can build, doesn't it? And it does so by not being a commercial. Sure, it makes use of certain sets. Sure, it's based on a brand. But it's a great work of art all the same. That was the failed potential of Space Jam: A New Legacy. It could have been a celebration of art, instead it was just an advertisement. Which is a shame. But then again, what do I know? I'm just some talking head on the internet. I'm not the professional writer or director that was hired to make this thing. Not saying I should have been, but I mean, honestly, which sounds better? The movie as it currently is, or the movie I just pitched to you? Anyway, maybe you have a different idea of how Space Jam: A New Legacy could have worked. Something that's completely different, completely off the rails. Whatever it is, you can leave it in the comments section below or make your own video if you'd like. Because I think what's important is that we need to not just tear this movie down, we need to build up the good ideas of what the movie could have been. I hope this at least gets the ball rolling. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off. If you enjoyed what you just saw, hop on down to the description for links to Patreon, DeviantArt, and all of our social media, as well as links for Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, and Emerald of Maddox City, 3 original novels I think you'll really enjoy. Thank you all, and we appreciate your support.